When thinking about the great Bills teams of the early 90s, the conversation has to begin with the captain, the quarterback, Jim Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Billievers Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome to another Hall of Fame series edition of Billievers Talk, where we take a look at every single one of the Buffalo Bills Hall of Famers. For you young fans out there, I want to give you a taste of Buffalo Bills glory, give you a little history lesson when it comes to our Buffalo Bills. For you older fans out there, I want you to be able to reminisce the good old days, talking about some of the great Buffalo Bills teams, and it's no different in this episode. Before we do that, however, I'll remind everyone, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, guys, hit that subscribe button for continual Buffalo Bills and Buffalo sports breaking news. Not only do we have you covered in breaking news, but we also do fun videos like this. So you want to make sure after you hit that subscribe button, you hit that notification bell. YouTube will notify you when we put out new content. Again, doing a individual for this Hall of Fame series every week, Fridays at 7 p.m. So you want to make sure you're right here on Believers Talk to take a look back at some of the Buffalo Bills greats. We started with O.J. Simpson, the first Buffalo Bills player to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Second, we got just the pure pleasure of speaking with Billy Shaw, Buffalo Bills Hall of Famer. And then last week, we did Marv Levy, who was the head coach of those teams of the early 90s for the Buffalo Bills that saw the Buffalo Bills go to 4 straight Super Bowl appearances. And today we get to talk about the quarterback of those teams. That's right, we get to talk about Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1960. He was played 11 NFL seasons with the Buffalo Bills. But if you want to talk about Jim Kelly, if you want to talk about some of the great Jim Kelly traits, it showed up early in his career. Even before he played with the Buffalo Bills, even before he played in the USFL. You see, when Jim Kelly was in college, Jim Kelly was scouted, was recruited by a head coach many of you may know, former Penn State University head coach Joe Paterno. Joe Paterno was scouting Jim Kelly, and it wasn't for the quarterback position. No, Joe Paterno was scouting Jim Kelly to play linebacker at the collegiate level. So he looked at Jim Kelly, he looked at Jim Kelly's toughness, he looked at Jim Kelly's grit, he looked at Jim Kelly's size. Jim Kelly was a big quarterback, and he said he could play linebacker at Linebacker University, Penn State. And what a different route Jim Kelly's career would have taken if he would have played linebacker. Obviously, this is not something that Jim Kelly wanted to do. He wanted to play the quarterback position, and that's because he knew how good he can be. And man, was he one of the best to ever do it for the Buffalo Bills. Jim Kelly was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in 1983, but for those of you who don't know the story, although most of you probably do, 1983 was definitely a draft of the quarterbacks, right? You had Elway, you had Marino, you had Kelly, you had a good core group of quarterbacks in that mix, and we all know what happened with Elway. 1983, John Elway was drafted number 1 overall, refused to play for the Baltimore Colts. In fact, said that he would go play baseball instead because he was a highly recruited baseball player as well. Got traded to the Denver Broncos. The rest is history there. Well, John Elway was not the only quarterback taken in the first round of the 1983 draft that did not want to play for the team that drafted him. That includes our quarterback, Jim Kelly. In 1983, the Buffalo Bills drafted Jim Kelly, and right before Jim Kelly signed the paperwork to be a Buffalo Bill, and this is well documented, this is talked about in A Football Life with Jim Kelly, the NFL Network special. This is something that is not fictitious in any way, shape, or form. Jim Kelly was in the room getting ready to sign the contract to play with the Buffalo Bills, which again, he wasn't fond of going to Buffalo, and the USFL called. And they called the secretary outside the office, and he got transferred into the office where Jim Kelly and his agent was. His agent picked up the phone, and then from there, the rest is history, as they say. Jim Kelly walks out of that room not signing the contract for the Buffalo Bills and plays 2 seasons in the USFL for the Houston Gamblers. Now, the good news for the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Bills fans, the USFL would go under, just like we've seen leagues that have tried to start up today, the AAF and now most recently the XFL. They went under after those 2 seasons, and in 1986, Jim Kelly does sign with the Buffalo Bills. And it's great from the start, right? Then they bring in Marv Levy, who we talked about last week, as the head coaching realm. And you talk about a quarterback in Jim Kelly, who again was probably the best quarterback to ever do it for the Buffalo Bills. He led the NFL in passing in 1990. He actually led the AFC in passing in 1991. If you want to take a look at Josh Allen and you want to keep bringing up the stat that he has not thrown for over 300 yards, that's not in a game. That's not something that you could have said for Jim Kelly. In fact, Jim Kelly threw for over 300 yards in a game in his career 26 times. So maybe we need Josh Allen to go learn a lesson and listen to Jim Kelly to tell him how he can get it done. In 11 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, you want to talk about success, you want to talk about a good success rate. In 11 seasons with the Buffalo Bills made the playoffs 8 times, including 6 AFC East championships, including 4 AFC championships. Again, the Buffalo Bills, and we said this last week, and I'm sure we're going to say this again in future episodes as we continue to look at some of the players from these early 90 teams. The Buffalo Bills, the only team to ever go to 4 straight Super Bowls, which means Jim Kelly is the only quarterback to ever start in 4 straight Super Bowls. So that's something that no other quarterback has ever done, and that's something that Jim Kelly has had on. Now, again, we all know that the Buffalo Bills never won any of those Super Bowls, or else we'd be having a completely different discussion when it came to these Hall of Famers. But it's still an unprecedented feat to make the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, and Jim Kelly was the quarterback to get it done. Because again, you want to talk about Jim Kelly, one of the traits you always need to bring up is his toughness, not only his physical presence, right? We all know what physical presence Jim Kelly had, especially at the quarterback position, but you have to talk about his mental toughness as well. Jim Kelly took a lot of big hits in his career in Buffalo, and again, you talk about linebacker Penn State University trying to recruit Jim Kelly as a linebacker. That proves to you Jim Kelly's toughness when it comes to playing the game of football. Now, when you look at Jim Kelly, you have to wonder, and you always wonder this with the quarterback position, was he as good as he was due to the players around him, or did the players around him get better because Jim Kelly was their quarterback? Jim Kelly finished his career with 35,467 passing yards, 237 TDs, which at the time of his retirement was actually 3rd among Hall of Fame quarterbacks in the NFL Hall of Fame, and then 4 Pro Bowl selections. So some pretty good numbers for Jim Kelly. In 1991, Jim Kelly was a first-team All-Pro, and in 1990 and 1992, Jim Kelly was a second-team All-Pro. So not only did he have success, he had sustained success, which again is something we want to see out of our current quarterback. Hopefully that continues to improve as well. And we know that Jim Kelly has taken Josh Allen under his wings of sorts, and Jim Kelly is trying to teach Josh Allen the ropes, trying to teach Josh Allen what it is to be a Buffalo Bills quarterback, not just on the field, but off the field as well. So you're really glad to see that relationship building, that relationship growing, hopefully in something good, and hopefully can continue to grow as Josh Allen continues to improve and continues to stay right here with the Buffalo Bills. Now, when you talk about Jim Kelly's toughness, you have to talk about his toughness not only on the field, but off the field as well. In recent years, we've all been behind Jim Kelly as he's suffered through not 1, not 2, but 3 bouts with jaw cancer. We've seen him have to have parts of his jaw removed and replaced. If you look at Jim Kelly now, you see that the surgeries have taken a toll on his lower jaw, but just glad that he's here. And as of this video, we are still glad to announce that Jim Kelly is cancer-free, and we hope that stays that way for a long time. But Jim Kelly, again, the bracelets, the hashtag Kelly Tough was trending around the world for a long time because we were all behind Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly was actually honored at the ESPYs with the Jimmy Valvano Award for Courage. So there's some great things that Jim Kelly achieved. He had to achieve it through some of the toughest times in his life, and that's the biggest one in that would be the loss of his son Hunter. Hunter was born on Jim Kelly's birthday, and Jim Kelly speaks about this in his enshrinement, in his induction ceremony, where Hunter was at the induction ceremony back in 2002. And he talks about when Hunter was born. Within months of his birth, doctors said that he had an incurable disease that will end up costing Hunter his life. And the doctors did not expect Hunter to live as long as he did. However, the disease did end up taking Hunter's life way too soon. But the Jim Kelly family, Jim Kelly and his wife, started a foundation in honor of their son Hunter, which is still going strong today. And it really is to help out all kids around the world with cancer. So if you haven't already considered donating to a cause, the Jim Kelly Foundation gives 100% of their proceeds to cancer research as well. So you want to look into something, definitely something to look into. But if you want to take a look at Jim Kelly's toughness, again, you have to not just think about what he did on the field, you have to think about what he did off the field as well. Jim Kelly, definitely someone that has been through the grind when it comes to life experience. Now, again, a lot of Bills fans back in the early 80s and 83 were not happy with what Jim Kelly did, going to the Houston Gamblers instead of signing with the Buffalo Bills. However, luckily for us, Jim Kelly did make the right decision eventually and became a Buffalo Bill, and now he has said numerous times he is a Buffalo Bill for life. He is part of Bills Mafia. He's part of the family here, and so we just want to say thank you, Jim Kelly, for all your years with the Buffalo Bills, a Hall of Fame nod that's well deserved. So again, guys, leave it in the comment section. What did you think about Jim Kelly as a quarterback? What are some of your favorite memories as Jim Kelly as a quarterback? You go back to AFC Championship games where they absolutely destroyed the Oakland Raiders, beating them 55-3. You can go back to some of his rivalry games against the Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino. Some great memories there as well. There's a lot of good memories for this Buffalo Bills team and Jim Kelly. Of course, we're going to get into some of those in later episodes when we talk about more of these Buffalo Bills greats, these Hall of Famers. So again, guys, make sure you join me for the continuation of this Hall of Fame series. If you haven't already left a comment, guys, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Jim Kelly. Like this video. And again, if you haven't watched some of the other Hall of Fame videos, make sure you go back and do that. Again, was honored and humbled to be able to talk to Buffalo Bills Hall of Famer Billy Shaw. So check that out if you haven't already. Jim Kelly, the 4th inductee for the Buffalo Bills to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Again, we're going to go over every single player that ever played for the Buffalo Bills, from O.J. Simpson to Terrell Owens. We're covering them all right here. So again, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, like this video, leave a comment. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do, go Bills.